This is my mom. Yeah, so I'm just gonna ask you some questions. First, when did you first realize I had progressive hearing loss?
When you were about 1.5, we went for an audiologist checkup because you had some blockages in your ear when you were born. Nothing related to your hearing aid. It had to just do with the ear canal. So we went back for a checkup and we were talking to the audiologist and he did a tympanogram and your eardrum was working fine and everything looked normal. But I said there's something wrong because she only talks maybe 10 to 15 words and she doesn't babble. I just knew there was something wrong in my heart. So I said, well, there's one more test I can perform and we'll see what that says. And they did that one more test. I don't remember what the test was. And it referred her, which means that she needed to do further testing. So from there, our doctor, Dr. Jackson, sent us down to Children's Hospital in D.C. And there she had a test called the BEAR test, the BEAR test, the BEAR test. And she had to be put to sleep and they checked her neurosensory conduction in her ear, and it referred her, which meant she had neurosensory hearing loss. And from there we had to go to Johns Hopkins Hospital, and at Johns Hopkins Hospital they did a CAT scan, and the CAT scans showed that she had two syndromes, and the two syndromes, the first syndrome was Mondini syndrome, and that meant she only had 1.5 cochleas in both ears. It was bilateral. And then she also had a recessive gene, hereditary thing called LVAS. And some people call it LVAS. It's enlarged vestibular aqueduct syndrome. And that means that the canal is large and the fluid moves back and forth. And sometimes the cilia or hair cells in your ear is not covered by liquid and that kills them. So they told us that she would progressively lose her hearing and that she would probably be deaf by middle school. They said that we should get hearing aids to, Dr. Naparka was the head of the hearing center at Johns Hopkins at the time, and he was, at that time, the world's expert in hearing loss. And he was the go-to guy in the state of Maryland. And actually all over the country. He was one of the founders of cochlear implants. He told us to get some hearing aids and they would make the sounds larger for Chrissy. Now Chrissy had high frequency hearing loss, so she did not hear any F's or any S sounds, F sounds, S sounds, and to even utter that sound, even if we amplified the sound louder, she would still not hear it. So at that time we got her hearing aids, and we also, when she was around 2.5, 3, I guess 2.5, she started having somebody come into the house and work on her speech. So she did speech therapy starting around 2.5 with Child Find and Infants and Toddlers program. And she also went to the local elementary school at 3 and did speech therapy. For a whole year, she blew through her teeth trying to make the S and F sounds. They used mirrors, and she had an unbelievable audiologist, a speech therapist at the time. Her name was Celia Fallon. And she was with her for about a year or 2. And then we found a private speech therapist, Cecilia Hedges, and worked with her, for 13 years. And she was not only a speech therapist, but she was also a therapist and a second mom to Chrissy.
Mm-hmm. So when they told you about the hearing, what did they tell you about cochlear implants?
So given the prognosis that Chrissy would be deaf by middle school, we were kind of sad, but she naturally would go like this. She naturally started reading lips, and she, during speech therapy with Miss Hedges, was taught how to read lips. You could work for the CIA. And she literally can read lips from across the room. It's just exhausting for her to continually read lips. So up until that point, she used hearing aids and got little pieces of information from her hearing aids. And then because she is an expert lip reader, she was to be able to be mainstreamed. But he said, Dr. Parker said, when she goes deaf and she gets no more feedback from her hearing aids, that he would fix her problem by doing a cochlear implant.
Which is the surgery.
Just to do the surgery.
So
But
you followed the advice of the doctors all the way through. You just listened to everything the doctors were telling you.
yeah, so Dr. Naparko was the head of the hearing center at Johns Hopkins, which is a renowned hospital at the time. And considering I had never had any experience with hearing loss, I had to trust the experts.
Mm-hmm.
So when Chrissy was in 10th or 11th grade, her hearing took a big drop. She was in high school, in a mainstreamed high school at that time.
And then you started learning ASL.
I actually waited a little bit. I didn't realize how bad her hearing loss is. She didn't communicate that to me as clearly as bad. We did get her signers, which helped her to get through 11th and 12th grade. But 11th and 12th grade was a really difficult time for her. Other kids were not very nice. I think they finally realized, all the way through school, I think they thought Chrissy was faking that she had hearing loss because her speech, and even today, her speech, after having, 13 years of speech therapy and learning how to lip read, her speech is atypical of someone who's deaf. It usually has much more of a tonal quality of a deaf person, and she works very hard still at her speech, so it doesn't have that resonant sound with it. So back to that. So around then, we thought we would do a cochlear implant in the near future. She still had a little hearing, and she was too frightened, too scared to do a cochlear implant. So we just had to follow her lead, and at that same time, she asked us to, I guess mainly after the first year of college, and during her senior year, she asked us to start learning sign. And so I started to learn sign. My husband was more reluctant. He very much wanted her to just get a cochlear implant and fix the problem, because that's what men do. They fix things. And since then, he has been enlightened, and he is going to learn sign language. Mm-hmm. He's learning it very slowly, but he will learn it because my husband and I both love Chris very, very much.
Mm-hmm. And you finished taking ASL?
Finished
2?
ASL 1 and ASL 2. Mm-hmm. I know a little bit of ASL. I'm still very reluctant to sign. I'm very slow and very methodical, but I am learning, and I do, when I'm in situations where I have a deaf person, I try to sign.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm so proud of you.
I'm trying. I think there's no guide to being a parent. You just kind of do what you think is best at the time.
Guide to being a parent of a deaf kid.
And they say that deaf children, what is it, like 75% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. Mm-hmm. So it's not uncommon, the situation. I mean, I really should write a book. Mm-hmm. I was very lucky that I had wonderful people come into my life, like Celia Hedges, number one, who did speech therapy, but then there was also unbelievable hearing itinerant teachers in the public schools. Miss Hanch was the first one, and then Miss Beth Ann Mon, who they're just phenomenal people, and everybody knows. And if you're in Pennsylvania or in Maryland, you know Beth Ann Mon. She is a huge advocate for the hearing impaired, and
you should probably my best hearing specialist.
she did tons of things to advocate for Chrissy, and we love her and we love Miss Hedges. So we've learned a lot, and they've taught us a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Love you.
Love you too.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe.